Afternoon, Council and staff, and those who are joining us either in person or online this afternoon. Welcome to the Council meeting for Monday, September the 26th, 2022. And we are commencing at 2 p.m. this afternoon, and we'll call the meeting to order at this time. Looking to adopt the agenda, we do have one change this afternoon, and that is specific to the items that we are looking at in camera. On the public agenda, the item is identified as item A. The address is 452 Raglan Street, OLT Appeal. And staff have advised that between staff and the proponent, they're looking to bring this particular matter forward later this fall for consideration at a future council meeting. So with that, unless there are any questions around the table of staff as to the change, I'd like to table that the content of the council agenda for September 26, 2022 be amended and as presented. And again, it is the removal of item A under 4.1 of the proposed agenda. Can I get a mover and seconder? I've got the Deputy Mayor. I've got Councillor Carrier. Any questions? Seeing none, call the question. Those in favor, and that is carried unanimously. Thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest from around the table? It looks like I've got potentially two. Councillor Doherty, Councillor Carrier. Councillor Doherty, go ahead.
Thank you. Shall I start it? I'll start again.
Okay.
I have an indirect interest in item 4.2 on the closed session agenda on the basis of a membership I have with an organization which may have an interest in the matter.
Okay, thank you. So for the public, that would be under item 4.1 as identified as B on the public agenda, but you're correct as to the number on the in-camera agenda. And that's the Bridgewater OLT appeal.
Correct.
Great, thank you. Councillor Carrier.
Thank you, Mayor Hall. I have three. They're all pertaining to the same matter under the in-camera agenda. On the public agenda, 4.1.f. On the open session, 13.1 and 16.2.1. Each of them are dealing with the MZO, Poplar Side Road properties. As I've disclosed before, under the Council Code of Conduct, I have a disqualifying interest as to my ongoing friendship with the landowner, Mr. DePoche.
Great, thank you. And as we have all term, if something arises, you know how to act accordingly. That then takes us to item 4, which is the purpose for meeting this afternoon at 2, and that would be 4.1, our in-camera session. Whereas the clerk hereby concurs the reasons for in-camera session have been duly reviewed and considered, and the matters are authorized under the exemption provisions to conduct a closed session in accordance with the Municipal Act prior to proceeding into closed session. Therefore, be it resolved that this council proceeds in camera in order to address a matter pertaining to the first being the security of property of the town or local board. That would be item C. A proposed or pending acquisition or disposal of land for town or local board purposes. That would be item E. Litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the town or a local board. That would be item B and C. The receiving of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Items B, C, D, E, and F. Portion, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, and that would be item F. Those items that were identified are B, the Bridgewater OLT appeal, C, the CGI update, D, the solicitor advice, RE, the FOI request, E, property acquisition, and F, MZO update. Before I call the vote, are there any questions specific to what I've just tabled? Sorry, I'll look for a mover and seconder first. I've got Councillor Jeffrey, Councillor Carrier. Any questions? Seeing none, then I'll call the vote. Those in favor? That's unanimous. And so at 2:06, we will then move from here across the way into the Braniff room and go into closed session. Thank you. Council, will bring us back to order. And we had recessed within in-camera. And so I'm bringing us back to the table, and I'll look for a motion to rise. Can I have a mover and seconder? Got the Councillor Jeffrey and the Deputy Mayor. All those in favor? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. For the public, in terms of a report, at the outset of our meeting this afternoon at 2 p.m., item A within the public agenda, known as 452 Raglan Street, the OLT appeal, that was removed as part of an amended agenda for today. The rest, or the balance of the agenda, was approved as printed and circulated. And in terms of a report for one of the items, and that was the last identified as F, the MZO update, we will be offering a public comment. That'll come under item 16.2 toward the end of this afternoon or this evening's meeting. So with that, I'd like to bring the regular council meeting to order, and I will start with the reading of our land acknowledgement. For more than 15,000 years, the First Nations walked upon and cared for the lands we now call home. Anishinaabek, Haudenosaunee, Ojibwe, and many others who were families, friends, and communities the way we are today. The town of Collingwood acknowledges the Lake Simcoe-Nottawasaga Treaty of 1818 and the relationship it establishes with the original inhabitants of Turtle Island. We acknowledge the reality of our shared history and the current contributions of Indigenous people within our community. We seek to continue empowering expressions of pride amongst all of the diverse stakeholders in this area. We seek to do better and to continue to recognize, learn, and grow in friendship and community, nation to nation. So that I will look to item 6 on our agenda, which is the adoption of minutes. And that being that the minutes of the council meeting held September 20th, 2022 be approved as presented. Can I get a mover and seconder? Councillor Berman, I've got Councillor Carrier. Yes, Councillor Doherty.
Yes, thank you. Just with regard to those minutes and also the minutes of the D&O meeting that we will be looking at later on in the agenda, there is no mention of a discussion with engineering with regard to the design of the intersection from the Sky Devco property and adjacent to the Lighthouse Point property. So there was a question asked with regard to that design. During the D&O meeting, the report was supplied at council last week, but it's not reported in the agenda.
Okay. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to make a note of that and have the agenda or call the question to approve the minutes presented. And then under business arising, we'll just ask for clarification and that be noted that that point is being made for
Thank you.
clarification's sake.
Thank you.
Okay. So in terms of the minutes that have been presented, I've got a mover and seconder. I'll call the question to approve those minutes as presented. And it's carried unanimously. Taking us to 6.2, and your comment observation is noted. And I'll just look to Clerk Almus to provide comment. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you, Your Worship. The comment will be noted that Director Slama would address the concerns that were raised, and we'll include that in the development and operation standing committee notes. However, regular discussion and notes aren't recorded in the official council minutes, so we'll make the correction if you want to bring that up under receiving the D&O minutes, because it was part of the updates, I believe, in the staff report. On an additional matter, Your Worship, I do have a request. There was another outstanding item, business arising from those minutes from last week as well, pertaining to work planned at High and Finley. And I know that Director Slama is present for a short amount of time, and she's able to provide that update now if Council would like to hear it.
Okay. I know that there was a fairly robust discussion regarding that particular intersection. So with the council's indulgence, I would be prepared to move her forward and have her offer comments. So, and there she is. Director Slama, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Worship. Good evening, Council. I just wanted to follow up on a question that Councillor Hamlin asked last week at the council meeting, and that was with respect to the plan for traffic signals or pedestrian crossings on High Street at Finley and Pluis Drive. So Finley's on the east side, Pluis Drive is on the west. And I had just requested indulgence just to speak with our acting manager of engineering, Stuart West, and he did provide me an update. So I wanted to mention to council that traffic signals or pedestrian crossing were not included in the draft plan approval for the Summit View subdivision. So there aren't plans for the developer to install either traffic signals or pedestrian crossing at that location. However, staff realize and acknowledge that this area with the build out of the Mountain View subdivision and with the addition of the Summit View is quite a large residential area, and there's a lot of traffic by people of all ages trying to cross High Street. So the town is reviewing within the 2023 budget. Engineering has included funds to construct a temporary AODA compliant pedestrian signals at High Street and Finley and Pluis. And this would be contingent on pedestrian warrants being met. And the pedestrian traffic counts will be conducted this fall, so during the school season. And the reason we're calling this temporary pedestrian signals is because they're also in the plan of engineering's plan, long-term plan of capital works, where we have initiated a Class EA to look at High Street and what High Street, how High Street might be developed into the future. So during the Class EA process, where we're looking at options for High Street, there will be opportunity for public consultation and further comment from both the public and residents, as well as more in-depth study that's related to traffic and active transportation numbers. So the intent is to see what comes out of the Class EA process as like a longer term vision for that intersection. But the interim or short term plan is to, through the 23 budget, look at this installation of the pedestrian signals.
Thank you, Director Slama. Are there any questions from around the table specific to the update? Yes.
I'd just like to say thank you for that response. It's very fulsome.
You're welcome. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Slama. And then circling back, you're okay then, Councillor Doherty, with regards to the first matter coming up under the DNO?
Certainly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. That then takes us to community announcements. And I'm going to start again, and then we'll go around the horn if that's okay. I'd like to bring the following to the public's attention on behalf of council and staff and the corporation. Friday, September the 30th marks National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, known as Orange Shirt Day. A time to reflect on the painful history and legacy of the residential school system and to honor the children whose lives were lost, as well as survivors, families, and communities. Canada's history has included the forcible removal of Indigenous children from their homes. Many children never returned or were harmed through neglect and abuse. The injustices of residential schools, the 60s scoop, colonial oppression, and destructive government policies have threatened culture, language, traditions, and communities. Through trauma and genocide, Indigenous people, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit have embodied strength and resiliency, rising against systems of discrimination, inequalities, continuing traditional culture and ways of being despite processes of colonization. Reconciliation is the responsibility of us all. To build mutually respectful relationships between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people, establishing places of healing and providing opportunities for learning, listening, and honoring Indigenous ways. Again, on behalf of the town of Collingwood and Council, I would like to offer and encourage the community to join in the raising of the Every Child Matters flag on September 29th at 4 p.m. at the community flagpole in front of the Collingwood Public Library, so the day prior to National Truth and Reconciliation Day. On the 30th of September, we encourage all residents to wear orange in an appropriate manner. We further visit the Awen Gathering Place at Harperview Park and add an orange ribbon to the sweat lodge located in the outer circle. And I believe that quantities of these ribbons are still available through the municipality at the library or potentially the museum. And lastly, that on the 30th, we encourage members of the community to participate in the sacred fire that will take place at 6:45 p.m. at the Awen Gathering Place. And specific to that last point, I just want to make note that we're encouraging residents of the community to come out at 6:45 p.m., no earlier. And the reason being that prior to the public gathering, there will be a very private gathering of members of our Indigenous community. This opportunity for them is to come together in a moment of healing, comfort within their own community. It is not an opportunity for us to come and engage. We are encouraging people, though, to come afterward and demonstrate our support in silence, that we recognize these truths and that we stand with them in recognizing that there is much work still to be done. So again, Orange Shirt Day takes place on September the 30th, this Friday. Reconciliation is the work that needs to continue for generations to come. And I greatly appreciate staff contribution in framing some of these points for this evening. With that, I will then ask our Deputy Mayor for announcements.
Thank you. I have nothing to add.
Councillor Madigan?
Thank you very much. Well said, Mayor Hall. And to steal right from the Town of Collingwood's Facebook page, the moment that we've all been waiting for, Centennial Aquatic Centre welcomes swimmers in their soft reopening as of today. So lane swimming, leisure swimming are available. And for more details for the grand reopening this Saturday, October 1st, just continue to check out either Engage Collingwood or the Town of Collingwood's Facebook page.
Councillor Doherty?
Yes, thank you. There has been high interest in our community with regard to short-term accommodation, and I'm just going to remind the public that the online survey with regard to short-term accommodation and resident opinions with that closes on September 30th. So if there is an interest in participating in the survey, then to do that before Friday. And secondly, I just want to say Shana Tova to our Jewish community on the occasion of Rosh Hashanah. And I wish everyone a happy, healthy New Year.
Thank you. Councillor Berman?
Thank you, Mayor Hall. That was going to be my only community announcement. Councillor Hamlin was kind enough to wish me a Happy New Year as we got started and reminded me that I'd be remiss if I didn't wish Shana Tova to our Jewish community and friends and family. It started last night at sundown and goes until tomorrow night at sundown. It's the start of the Jewish high holidays. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jeffrey?
Thank you, Mayor Hall. Had the opportunity to watch two exciting games of our OJHL hockey team, the Collingwood Blues, one on Friday and one on Saturday, both of which they won. But I'm pleased to enthusiastically announce that currently our Collingwood Blues are number one in the CJHL rankings for 2022-23. So that's nationally.
Fantastic. Councillor Hamlin?
Thank you. This Sunday, October the 2nd at 1 p.m., the town will be having a short ceremony to thank Julie DiLorenzo and her family for their generous donation of trees to our town, planting of trees to our town. And it will be held at Fisher Field in the area that's just north of the new washroom facility. There's a 1 acre tree park that was planted there. And that's where the short ceremony will be. And I've also heard a rumor that there will be cake for those who are interested. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Carrier.
Thank you, Mayor Hall. Nothing for me this evening.
Okay. I just have one last quick announcement, and that is that on behalf of the BIA, they are hosting Fashion Week next week. And the kickoff event is October the 3rd, which is a week today, and is being held at 11 rooms. There are, I believe, 18 to 19 venues throughout the week that are hosting various events. And on the 6th is a gala fashion event. If you go to the Collingwood Fashion Week website, you can find out all of the details, including locations, events that are significant to those particular locations, etc. And it was a success in its inauguration, and I'm sure that it will be a success this year as they continue to grow and support the fashion district, which is quite significant within our downtown community. So, with that, if there are no other community announcements, that will take us to item 8 on our agenda, which is the public meeting for tonight. And this is in relation to 23 Georgian Manor Drive in Collingwood, legally described as Lot 12, Plan 1082, Collingwood. And I'm going to read out the following as it relates to the public planning meeting introduction. Welcome to Collingwood's public planning meeting for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment for the property municipally addressed as 23 Georgian Manor Drive. Members of the public will be invited to offer their comments or concerns respecting the proposal once staff have completed their review. Once the public portion of the meeting has been completed, no more public discussion will be allowed. Before closing, I will ask 3 times for further comments. I will then ask council members if they have any final questions for staff. It is very important that the town receive the correct names and addresses, including postal code of individuals having an interest in the planning application. Therefore, if you plan to speak to council at this meeting, or if you want to be notified of any future council or committee meetings concerning the application being considered, you must provide this information. Under the Planning Act, only those who have verbally expressed any comments or concerns here tonight or provided a written submission of any comments or concerns prior to council's enactment of the bylaw have the right to appeal any decision of council to the local planning appeal tribunal. And if you do not make an oral submission this evening or a written submission to council before the bylaw is passed, you may not be added to as a party to an appeal before the local planning appeal tribunal, unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. This meeting is being video recorded and streamed on the municipal YouTube channel and broadcast on Rogers TV. Your name, address, comments, and any other personal information are being recorded according to the Municipal Act and the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. The minutes will be available to the general public, including the town's website. I will ask the planning services also confirm that notification to the public has been given as required by the Planning Act within their presentation this evening. And with that, I think we'll go through our CAO and turn it over to our Acting Director of Planning, Lindsay Ayers, for the presentation. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Hall, and good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and members of council. As was read out in the opening remarks, this evening's public meeting pertains to a proposed zoning bylaw amendment to permit a second unit on a residential property municipally addressed as 23 Georgian Manor Drive. Some members of the Development and Operations Services Standing Committee have had an opportunity to virtually meet Community Planner Cassandra Dillman, but for those members of council who have not, she is in attendance in the audience this evening. Community Planner Dillman joined the Planning Services team approximately approximately 7 months ago and is the planner assigned to this file. And so without further ado, I will pass it over to her to provide her presentation. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Welcome. The floor is yours.
You're going to want the mic. Still on? Is that better? Not yet? Maybe I'm too tall for this?
Kind of have to eat it.
Okay, that sounds better. Good evening, Your Worship, Deputy Mayor, Council, and residents. My name is Cassandra Dillman, and I'm the community planner assigned to this file for a proposed zoning bylaw amendment at 23 Georgian Manor Drive. Next slide, please. This meeting will follow the town's standard public meeting format. Mayor Hall has already provided an introduction. The remainder of the meeting will consist of the confirmation of public notice, an overview of the zoning bylaw amendment review process, an overview of the application, and additional remarks by the applicant. And then the meeting will open to receive any comments or questions from the public, followed by comments and questions from council. Next slide, please. In accordance with the Planning Act, I can confirm that notice of public meeting was published and circulated on September 1st, 2022. Notice was given by ordinary mail to every landowner within 120 meters of the subject land and published in the Collingwood Connection newspaper. Next slide, please. This slide provides a general overview of the development review process. The applicant submitted their zoning bylaw amendment application under the Planning Act, all their accompanied and required supporting plans and reports on June 3rd. The application was then reviewed by Planning Services and deemed complete on July 19th. Step 4 on the slides there involved the circulation of the application to various town departments, external agencies for their review and comment. The statutory public meeting is tonight. We are here this evening to receive comments from the public on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. I will return to this slide later in the presentation to review the steps following tonight's meeting. Next slide, please. The subject property is located on the north side of Georgian Manor Drive, approximately 250 meters east of Huronia Pathway. The agent for this application is Gord Russell, and he's in attendance this evening and will be providing a presentation shortly. The purpose of the application is to permit a second unit in an existing detached garage with a gross floor area of 76% of the gross floor area of the single detached dwelling, whereas 40% is permitted per provision 4.40.14. The proposed second unit will have a gross floor area of 65 meters squared. The effect of this application is to allow a second unit in an existing detached garage. Next slide, please. The site is bound by Georgian Bay to the north, residential lands to the east and the west, and Georgian Manor Drive to the south. The subject lands are designated residential and are currently developed. There is a single-family dwelling and an accessory structure. A site visit was conducted on September 24th, as shown in the picture to the right. The structure you can see here is the existing detached garage. The proposed second unit would be located on that second floor. Next slide, please. This site plan details the existing lot and identifies the proposed second unit. So the existing house is 86.15 meters squared. That's approximately 927 square feet. The proposed second unit is 65 meters squared, or 700 square feet. It might be challenging to see on this plan, but the house does have 3 parking spaces, and the accessory building second unit has 4 existing parking spaces. This far exceeds zoning bylaw requirements for 2 parking spaces for the main house and 1 additional space for that second unit. Next slide, please. The existing garage was constructed in 2014, and per provision 4.33.6, the maximum ground floor area of a detached accessory building is 75 meters squared in a residential zone. The ground floor area of the existing garage is less than the required 75 meters squared. The upper level is currently being used as a recreation space and is approximately 65 meters squared. Next slide, please. The subject property is zoned residential first density, R1. The R1 zone permits a single detached dwelling, accessory buildings, and an accessory apartment or a second unit. A second unit is located inside of a detached accessory building and must meet all provisions outlined in the zoning bylaw, including but not limiting to ranging in size from 35 meters squared to 75 meters squared, but not exceeding 40% of the gross floor area of the single detached dwelling. While the proposed second unit is within this required size range at 65 meters squared, it's 76% of the gross floor area of the primary dwelling. As such, the applicant has applied for a zoning bylaw amendment. As I mentioned before, the existing house is quite modest in size. It's approximately 86 meters squared, or that 927 square feet. The proposed second unit is smaller than the main dwelling at 65 meters squared, or 700 square feet. Next slide, please. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment proposes to rezone the subject property from residential first density to residential first density with a site-specific exemption. Exemption provisions would identify that a second unit on the subject lands shall range in size from a minimum gross floor area of 35 meters squared to a maximum gross floor area of 75 meters squared, but shall not exceed the 76% of the gross floor area of the single detached dwelling. In summary, the proposed zoning bylaw amendment would rezone the property to allow a second unit in an existing detached garage. Next slide, please. I will note that since this has been published, I have received one additional comment from the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority. So Enbridge Gas, the Ministry of Transportation, and the MBCA have provided comment and have no concerns. I have also received 2 public questions regarding the location of the proposed septic and the existing septic systems. And I will note that the property owner has obtained an NBCA permit for the proposed septic system to service the second unit. And I understand the applicant's presentation will go further into that. Next slide, please. In terms of next steps after tonight's public meeting, steps will include reviewing and considering the comments received at tonight's public meeting, writing a comprehensive staff report and providing a recommendation on the application to the Development and Operations Standing Committee and to Council. Council's decision on this application will then happen at a subsequent Council meeting to approve or refuse this zoning bylaw amendment. If the amendment is approved, a notice of passing will be circulated to all individuals and organizations who've requested notice within 15 days. The notice will also be posted in the local newspaper. After Council decision, there is an appeal period. Should anyone wish to appeal a decision of Council to the Ontario Land Tribunal, if the amendment is passed and no appeals are received within this 20-day appeal period, then the amending zoning bylaw would come into effect. Slide, please. Members of the public can check the town's website to review the committee meeting agendas, or there is also an option to subscribe to the meeting updates on the website as well. The member of the public wishes to receive notice of decision on this application, please email me at cdillman@collingwood.ca. And I'd like to remind everyone that tonight's meeting is to receive comments on the application from members of the public and share information on the proposal. Should anyone wish to submit additional comments or concerns, again, feel free to email me. This concludes Planning Services presentation. Thank you, Your Worship and Council and members of the public. I understand the applicants are also in attendance this evening and would like to provide some remarks.
Thank you. I appreciate your presentation on behalf of staff and the municipality. Clerk Olmus, just before I call the applicant's representative forward, I actually didn't introduce this. I introduced in terms of the public process, but what's within our agenda here as it relates to the purpose and effect, I actually didn't read out. Now that was covered off in staff, so are we okay with that? Fantastic. Okay. Mr. Russell, would you like to come forward on behalf of the applicant? Welcome, Mr. Russell.
Thank you, Your Worship, Deputy Mayor, members of council. My name is Gord Russell. I'm a land use planning consultant. It's like coming home for this evening. So thank you very much for the excellent introduction to by Ms. Dillman to the proposal. And I would like to. I have a PowerPoint presentation. It's only about 14 slides. Ms. Dillman did cover a lot of the detail in that. That was an exceptional presentation for an introduction. So I will just get to the heart of it. But on behalf of my client, Linda and Gil and Jason Vieira, they're behind me. And I'd just like to step away from the podium and
welcome.
So a little bit of history on the property. They purchased the property in 2012, and they did some renovations to the interior of the building, but they didn't expand the main dwelling. And then they constructed the detached garage in 2014. And that garage is a 2-story garage. It's a double car garage on the first floor. And then there's an access to basically what we call a recreational living space on the second floor. So there are 2 rooms that are to be the bedrooms. There is a washroom that is roughed in, but is not finalized, finished. And then there's a living area and a kitchen area that the kitchen itself, the cabinetry is in, but not the fixtures such as the sink and the stove. So that's the gist of the setup of the building itself. The property undertook some shoreline improvements to the water side of the property in 2020-21, and through an NVCA permit. And we renew that permit to include a new septic system, and that permit has been issued. And that permit actually expires November 5th. We've renewed it once, and we're coming up to a deadline again. And what we understand is NVCA will not renew it a third or a second time. But obviously, if we have to, we'll reapply. But that's a difficult scenario. So we're very pushed to have this reviewed by your council, by the council, and if appropriate, bring forward at the next available council meeting. So what I'd like to do is start the presentation, and then there may be some technical questions that I can address from the site plans. But in terms of comments, heard from Ms. Dillman that we have no objection from all the agencies, and the neighbors have made a comment, but we advise them that the septic system for the main house is operational and is being maintained. So let's start. So this is the aerial photo, and as you can see, I want to just address the property line issue right at the beginning. So I'm going to try not to blind anybody. There's a little deviation on the property line on the west side of the property line, and that is incorrect, but that's what is illustrated from the registry office. What we have to the side of that aerial photo is a survey from Rod Reynolds, and he has advised that the actual lot line goes straight through. So I just wanted to verify that it doesn't loop into the site and through the garage. So I just wanted to clarify that. So basically, we are on Georgian Manor Drive, single detached dwelling at this location here. Attached garage is here, so there's a long driveway coming in, winding through to the detached single detached dwelling there. We have it's well landscaped. There are 2 parking spaces here, another 2 parking spaces in this location here, and then there's 3 parking spaces right at this location. And it's better illustrated on the site plan. Could you advance it, Robin, please? So this is the building permit information back in 2014. This is the location of the detached garage, and this is the layout of the garage. So this is the 2nd floor. The 1st floor, I didn't think that was pertinent because it's just parking of vehicles and access into the building. But the access into the building, there is a stairwell on the interior of the building on the 1st floor up to the 2nd floor. And you'll see how it's laid out by way of the photographs. But basically, in accordance to the zoning bylaw, they built a detached garage, 2-story, with living space above, but not to qualify as a dwelling unit. So they refer to these rooms as storage areas. The 3 areas here are storage areas, and this is a studio. So what we are doing is going from this phase to the next phase, which is to have it qualified as a dwelling unit through the proper process. One, please. So as you can see, detached garage, 2-story. There's the main access entrance into the 1st floor, and then to the stairwell, and then up to the 2nd floor. As you can see, the double-car garage. Next one, please. So what they're asking for is to change the provision in the bylaw for 2nd units. Basically, 2nd units are permitted on most residential lots within the municipality, provided that there is a single detached dwelling on that property. And the general provisions say that you have to have a floor area between 35 square meters and 75 square meters. We have 65 square meters on the 2nd floor, but there's a 2nd provision that says, and the ratio of square footage of the proposed 2nd unit to the main dwelling cannot be more than 40%. Well, that's a challenge because the main dwelling is modest and is just over 900 square feet. So what we would like to do is bump up the provision, the limiting provision, because it wasn't designed originally for approximately 2,000 square feet of a house. And that would give you an 800 square foot apartment unit. We don't have that. And from an affordability point of view, it doesn't make sense to add on to the house when we have this existing garage. So what we'd like to do is just identify that the provision of 40%, the limiting provision, be increased to 76%, is not increasing the proposed 2nd unit extensively. It's what it's doing is just recognizing that there was a limiting factor. It's supposed to be subordinate to the main dwelling. And we're trying to maintain that scenario that it is subordinate. However, because we have such a modest house square footage, that provision in this particular case is something that should be provided with a little bit of flexibility from this, and that's our recommendation. So let's go to the next slide. As you can see, the one provision within your zoning bylaw, section 4.40.14, deals with 2nd units. The range is the 35 to 75 square meters, but the gross floor area shall not exceed 40% of the gross floor area of the detached dwelling. That's the 3rd comment right here. That's what we're stuck on. We planning staff and myself discussed the opportunity to approach the Committee of Adjustment for a minor variance, but optics were that that would have been not as minor as what would normally be reviewed as minor. So we went to the next step and applied for a zoning amendment for council's consideration. So just to give you an idea, the 40% of the existing dwelling would be about 300 and I'm going to say 20, 30 square feet, and not sufficient for a second unit. 65 square meters or 700 square feet would be sufficient to provide the opportunity for a second unit that would have 2 small bedrooms and a 3-piece bathroom. And this is for Jason. Jason's here with he has 2 kids. He comes up from the city. He'd like to stay on the property. It's a beautiful property, but the house itself cannot facilitate all of them in the little house, and they would like to reside here on a regular basis, but not as a permanent home, but on a regular basis when they're coming up to visit the family. Next one, please. So as you can see, this is a map of the zoning map of the property, and the zone is residential R1. The official plan designates it residential. It identifies that there's limited services on the property, so it's serviced by municipal water, but septic system. The proposal is to put the R1 zone into an R1 exception zone, specifically to identify that the 76% floor area of the main dwelling is permitted to allow for the second unit. So here's the site plan. Ms. Dillon did go over that briefly. What I would like just to point out is that here's the driveway coming in. So it's basically in the center of the property. It deviates around the existing detached garage. Parking spaces are on both sides of the garage. And then there's the driveway continues on to the main dwelling, which is near the shoreline. And there's 3 parking spaces here. The location of the new septic system is to be located here, and that is to service the detached garage. And the second unit, when I say detached garage, the unit within the detached garage. The existing septic system, the question was asked, where is that? We didn't put it on the site plan, but it is in this location here, right beside the house. Next question, please, or next slide, please. So this is 2 photographs just of the entrance of the existing detached building for the accessory garage, and then the main dwelling. Next one. Main detached garage. Next one, please. So as you can see, the landscaping has been undertaken on the front of the property, and the driveway's been in. It's basically, there's going to be no change whatsoever to the outside of the property or outside of the buildings along the property. This extra unit can be facilitated with access and parking facilities, and landscaping is very suitable for a low density residential. Next one, please, Robin. So this is the interior. It's well finished. So basically this is basically the living room area. This is the main window looking out to the driveway. As you can see, there are 3 doors, one here, and then there'll be one next door or to that. Those are the accesses into what presently are called storage building or storage areas. And the 2 of them will be transferred into the small bedrooms and then the 3-piece bathroom. The cabinetry is up, but the kitchen's not functional, and basically it's just space for the summer in terms of couch and chair. Not being used as a dwelling unit at the moment, and it can't because there's no water fixtures in the. Please. So this is the permit that the NVCA provided for the shoreline works, as well as the new septic system. And as you can see, it's valid till November 5th, 2022. And I know we have a little bit of challenge there. but it's been, it was originally submitted in 2018, and then the shoreline works were completed, but we couldn't get the septic permit issued from the town until we deal with the small provision matter of the zoning bylaw. So we are here before you today to ask for your consideration for that. I think there's one more. So this is where the proposed septic system is, and I'm just going to indicate where the detached garage is now. There's the proposed septic system, and then there's the house there. So that's the second step in the permit. So the shoreline works have been done. This is a 2018 photograph, so it doesn't show where the new works, but those have been completely done. Photograph here, it illustrates a little bit better of what is in the field now, where the septic system is going to go. So here's the garage, and here's the septic system area. So there are 3 provincial documents that have to be looked at: the Planning Act, the Provincial Policy Statement, and the Growth Plan. We've reviewed them. We've provided a planning justification report to Ms. Dillman and Planning Services. There's also the county official plan, then the town's official plan, and the town's zoning bylaw. We've reviewed that. I provided a professional opinion that this application, the proposal before you, had regard for the Planning Act, is consistent with the provincial policy statement, conforms to the growth plan, conforms to the county official plan, conforms to the town official plan, and meets the intent and purpose of your zoning bylaw. And I would ask on behalf of the family that council give that consideration to your ultimate decision in a few weeks. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Russell. Before I go out to the public with, I guess, a first call for the opportunity to speak, I'll just extend an invitation to the 3 members of the family. Would any of you like to come forward and make a comment at this time? You don't have to. I'm just giving you that opportunity if you wish.
Like Mr. Russell said, it would be an opportunity for me and my daughters to be able to enjoy the residence with my parents, and you guys can consider that. Greatly appreciated.
And sorry, Jason?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate you coming forward. Just if you would be so kind, I think it was mentioned you're coming from the city up to Collingwood. So if you'd give us an address and postal code just for the record, that would be appreciated.
My house address
Sure.
is 26 Clovercrest Drive,
Okay.
Brampton.
And your postal code, sir.
Larry 7 Apple 2 Nancy 2.
Great. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So with that then, Clerk Almus, I'll look to you first. So this will be a first call. Is there anybody online who would like to offer comment at this time? And then we'll look to the gallery.
Thank you, Your Worship. We do have one attendee. If the attendee would like to address council regarding this application, please press the raise your hand feature at the bottom of your screen. And it does not, the individual participating does not wish to address council regarding this matter.
Okay. And I'll extend that invitation then to the gallery for a first time. Anybody wishing to come forward and offer comment or opinion? I will then go to a second call then online to see if anyone wishes to make comment. And now to the gallery. Yes, please come forward. Come on right up to the mic and your name and address.
George Rossiter, permanent address of 25 Georgian Manor Drive, Collingwood,
Okay.
L9Y5P2.
Thank you.
And we've been living there for 16 years. It's our retirement home. It's our life savings, and we've had some problems with some of the things that have been done on 23 Georgian and Manor Drive. I think the biggest one is that they raised their property from end to end by many inches, I think probably over a foot in some places, and the result has been frequent flooding of our property. I sent videos and photographs to this office a few years ago, 2 years ago, when they did this, that immediately started flooding. Water goes right across from their property over our driveway and floods our lawn sometimes for weeks, a month at a time. And no one ever done anything about it. No one said anything to us about it. It's killed all the birch trees on that side of the property. And of a bigger concern, I think, is that when it's really bad, I think it's threatening our entire septic and weeping system. I don't know what would happen if that happens. I just don't know. I like these guys. They're for the most part quiet, except some weekend stuff, but with the kids. But things like this really worry me. This new development, I think it's fine to say Jason's going to be there weekends occasionally or whatever it is, but what's to stop them from turning that into a full-time residence if Jason moves away and now they want to rent it out to another family with maybe 3-4 kids? And I just kind of wonder what we have, my wife and I have, as any kind of say what's going on. It's really quite something. They've done considerable damage to our property. We're kind of in the process of thinking we can't do it any longer. We're going to have to move. And, it's reduced the value of our life savings. I just don't know what to think about this. I'm really quite concerned. I know you guys are just trying to help. I'm sorry I didn't say Your Honor properly. I'm not very good at this sort of thing. Anyway, I'm just concerned. I'd like to know what reassurances, if any, we can have if this goes through. I mean, it's really something. It's not nice to have your land flooded. It's a concern. We're both retired. I've been retired for many years from surviving kidney cancer, and I can't make a lot of money. And what Gil and Linda have done to the property as far as improving it looks fabulous. I mean, it was just a dirt trench when they got there. They've made it a landscape to perfection, but it's been at our expense. And I don't like to bring it up. I don't want to make hard feelings, but I'm here today because I'm concerned, and I don't know what to do about it. I don't know if you can help me with it. I just don't know. I just want to say that. I'm sorry.
Okay. So, Mr. Rossiter, did I get that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for coming forward and making your comments known. And I'll just ensure that they were captured properly through our planning services. And I'll just offer comment to both yourself and to the Vieiras that, to have to come forward and speak about a matter in a public forum is not easy. And I commend that both of you have come forward and provided the intent and your concerns in a constructive manner. So the purpose of tonight is simply to take your comments into consideration, and as part of, and I'm sure that council maybe will make the request, but the report that comes back from staff with regards to next steps forward would answer those concerns as it relates to the property.
All right. Well,
Okay.
that's all I came here to say. They've cleaned it up a lot. There was a huge amount of construction material right along our property line, and that's been tidied up a lot, and I appreciate that. But there is still a lot of trailers and building equipment and stuff there. But that's, we've tried to hide as best we could with cedar trees. But the flooding is a concern. Our entire septic system is in jeopardy because of what they've done there. I think you should know about that.
So again, thank you, and
Right.
absolutely noted. And we've ensured that it's been captured by planning.
Well, very much for your time. I'm sorry to be sort of a blumbering fool.
No.
It's our life savings, and it's a bit of a concern for us. Thank you.
Thank you. So I will look to a third time. And I don't think we've got anybody else in the gallery. And so, Mr. Russell, you're looking to address questions, I'm assuming, at this point.
Yes.
Okay.
I can start with Mr. Rossiter first, and then receive questions from council if that's how you'd like to proceed.
So I'm just going to close the public portion first, and just acknowledging we've gone out 3 times for call and have had comment. And then I will open it up around the table for questions. So are there any questions for the applicant's representative, the applicants, Mr. Rossiter, et cetera? So going once? Yes. Councillor Dory.
Yes, thank you, and through you to Mr. Russell. It sounds as though this building will not be used on a full-time basis as residential, and I'm wondering what the intention is for its use when it is not occupied.
Through you, Your Worship. To address that issue would be simply if once it's a second unit, then the Viars could rent it out if they wished, or they could just use it as additional recreational space. So I can ask the owners if they've looked into that from a future planning perspective, but that would be the option. It'd be to rent it as an affordable housing unit, which is really what the whole primary objective is, to provide additional housing to the community. And if the buyers wish to rent it out on a full-time basis as a permanent residence to then they could do that under the zoning bylaw. Yes, so that would be the prospect of Jason not using the dwelling in the future.
Yes, thank you. I'll just ask the question, I guess, a little bit more directly. Is there any intention to use it as a short-term accommodation?
I'm not aware of it, but I'll step back and the buyers. Not at all. No, not under the zoning bylaw. My understanding is that as short-term accommodation uses are not permitted within this town at this moment.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay.
For you, Your Worship.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to address the neighbor's concern. If I could just go to the site plan, I think we have an opportunity here. And if perhaps in the next step on the planning process review, maybe we could achieve something that would work best for both parties. Robin, is there a possibility of just pulling up the site plan? Yes. So while we're getting there, part of the process is before we can put the septic system in, is get a building permit from your building services department for the septic system itself. And what they will do is look at a lot grading plan. And as you can see, Mr. Rossiter property right here, I believe. And this is the common lot line here. And at the moment, there is a swale along this lot line. Mr. Bayard confirmed that today. And the septic system is going here. So what I would suggest is that planning and building confirm that as part of the building permit application and permit is that that swale can be designed in directly adjacent to the septic system that's being proposed, and then that water, surface water, be carried out to the shoreline. We can certainly improve it from this point forward towards the water, and we can just ensure that there is some type of swale along here if there is not one there. So there's that opportunity under the building permit to make it conditional that there is a mutual swale on the Viars side of the property line. I'm not sure whether they have swales on their side, but the idea is all the water is rushing or moving forward to the lake itself. So all the lands to the south are moving that way, but there is a significant amount of surface water through rain events like today, and that water needs to be conveyed from the property out to the shoreline. There are no stormwater ditches along Georgian Manor Drive. So we do have that opportunity that the building department could ensure that the existing swale is either maintained further more than what it is being done now. And my understanding is that they are maintaining it, or it could be improved on as part of the septic system permit. So you have an opportunity to look at it in a little bit more detail.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It actually brings a question, if I may, to our planning staff. So not the use, but the actual structure, the garage itself. I'm assuming at some point it received a permit from our town to be built. And I guess the question would be, if it received a permit, would it not have gone through grading at that time?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll refer to Community Planner Dillman to answer that question.
And if it can't be answered tonight, if that could be just a takeaway, but let's see.
I understand that a building permit was obtained in 2014 for the construction of the garage. I do not know, and I can certainly look into if there was a grading plan done at that point. The property owners may also know the answer to that, but I can mention that in the report.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I won't bring them forward. So if that could be just confirmed as part of the report, then that would be appreciated. So, okay. Sure. Go ahead. Allow it.
The swales that we have there, they're about 2 feet wide by 2 feet deep. And the reason Mr. Ross's water is in his property, it's only in the spring because he shovels his snow to the grass and it just stays there and it doesn't go out on time. It used to come into our property because it was 8 inches lower. We raised the whole property to have it all to the level that we needed to have. That was all done. There's no water that stays from my property there. So I don't know why his stays. It's got the swales, the water goes in, goes under the driveway, and it goes into the catch basins that the city has there. And we've had issues before. We had 2 feet of water. That's all gone. That's all been taken care of. So I don't know where he's coming from, that it sits there with the water and it disrupts his septic. We have a septic up there. We've never had issues. We had water that would come from the lake in. We had the shoreline all redone. We're up about 4 feet off the water where we were 6 inches before. Water doesn't come in. Nobody gets water from the lake at our end. George's property is about 6 feet off the water, so there's no water coming off the lake. So I think there's got to be more on his end than our end. Our water doesn't stay there. I don't know why his does.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the comment from both neighbors.
Yeah.
And again, we'll refer it to our staff as part of their report coming back to council at a future date with their recommendations moving forward. But
Thank you.
okay.
Thank you.
Yes, Clerk Olmos.
Thank you, Your Worship. I know that the public meeting has officially closed. However, the one online attendee has raised their hand to speak to this matter. So you have two options. Council could consent to allow it, or we could suggest that the individual contact the planning department and provide their comments as soon as possible.
I am of the mind to allow them if they have a specific question to the matter, and I'll look to the table. I don't see any objections coming forward. So if you'd like the individual to, one call, please.
Thank you. We'll allow them to speak. So we have you unmuted. If you press the unmute button on your end, you'll be able to address council. The individual's name, as appears on our list, is Alan Pritz.
Sorry,
Yes,
so there
good
was,
evening.
Mr. Kretz, is it? Did I have that correctly?
It's Alan. The last name is
Yeah.
Pritz. That's spelled P as in Peter, R-I-T, S as in Sam.
Welcome. If you could just give us your address and postal code as well for the record, please.
I'm a resident at 29 Georgian Manor Drive. I don't recall the postal code off the top of my head here.
We'll go with L9Y and we'll fill in the blanks. So go ahead, sir.
Perfect. Yes. So first off, I'm certainly in support of Mr. Vieira's or the Vieira application for the secondary unit, but I am concerned about this comment regarding the drainage. There is a free-for-all that's happened in this area with respect to drainage. My property, I am second generation owner of it since it was originally developed. And the concept has been everybody raising their lots, and what ends up happening is the septics do get flooded. One of the challenges is this, I'd like to correct the thought process of, swales and draining into the lake. Everybody is so paranoid about the lake level increasing that they've raised the waterfront level and the drainage is actually going the other way. And that is the reason that our lots are becoming flooded. So I would suggest that as part of a condition here, the town needs to look at the drainage. There is drainage along 29 Georgian or along Georgian Manor Drive. I had conversations with Ken Estill and Bill Plewis many, many years ago. This is 2 decades ago, and the drainage needs to be addressed.
Well, I thank you for those comments, not only related to the applicant subject property, but to the street as a whole. And we will make sure that those comments are referred to staff as part of their follow-up in their report. So with that, I think that we had closed, and I think we've had a good opportunity to listen to the parties. Questions have been offered from council, and as a result, I will close this part of our agenda and move on. Folks, you're welcome to stay. You're also welcome to go and watch Aaron Judge go for the record, or Montreal's playing New Jersey tonight. Take your pick, whatever you'd like. So thank you for coming, though. That takes us then to item 9 on our agenda, which is the 9.1 update on water capacity and land use planning. And I'll turn that over to our CAO for the update. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. There should be a short presentation that would look quite familiar that can be pulled up. And there's not a lot of changes today. I've made sure that they're all in red so that you can, you and the public, you council and the public can see what those are. Do you have? No? Okay. Actually, so the presentation seems to have been lost in transit. What I will do is just simply note those changes, if it's okay with council, a brief update. Just one moment, please. I'm updating council because of a resolution for a monthly update. The situation really has not changed from past weeks. With respect to the land use planning policy study, we still do have the 2 remaining appeals, one on behalf of John Welton and one on behalf of Crest Point Real Estate for our zoning bylaw amendment, which would enable us to confirm that they're servicing prior to issuing a building permit. With respect to interim control bylaw exemptions, we did have a decision made by council at the end of last month, a week ago, the first council meeting in this month. 204 of the 205 remaining single development units of water. I'm on slide 9. You're on slide 5, and you can go all the way to slide 9. Be some red text coming right up. Thank you very much. I'll let you know when to advance. Now I know that there is a presentation. So what's happened recently? So all the servicing that council has put aside for 2022 has been allocated down to one remaining SDU as of the decision by council last week, which means that we're on track for continued high development pace as we have been over the last several years. And all of those developments have been looked at through a complete community lens and the value and alignment with the values of the community. And we will have some updates coming for council in the near future around the 2023 allocation approach and policy. Should the ICBL extend beyond December 31st, 2022, we'll have to take that into account as well. And we did, staff did set out earlier this month that there's a proposal of about, I believe it's 450 single development units suggested as available for 2023. There is one change on the next slide. We did note last week that council's finalized, council and NUTEC and here have finalized our agreement on future water supply. That water supply won't be augmented whatsoever until the plant expansion is complete. However, we did have a to be confirmed item now shown in red hash marks that we would possibly be able to implement a reduced supply with New Tecumseh. And I would suggest that that's something that is unlikely to happen, will not happen under that agreement. So I just wanted to make transparently that change here in the overall schedule. Other than that, we are on track, continue to be on track per recent updates. That's all of the update today. Typically, we do show you some charts around the amount of water used and the amount remaining, and we'll be back at our next update with those. It's just that it was so recently last week that you made some significant allocations. We haven't updated those charts yet. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Skinner. Is there anyone from around the table that have perhaps a question for clarification? Okay. Seeing none then. Will take us to item 10 on the agenda, which is our standing committee report. And I've got it noted here, and I'll circle back, Councillor Doherty, but Council received the Development Operations Standing Committee report from its meeting held September 12, 2022, and hereby approve the recommendations contained within the report as presented. And the one is PW 2022-17, 2022 Environmental Services Mid-Year Operations Update recommendation to receive. And I'll look to our chair and vice chair for mover and seconder, if I may. Thank you. And then I'll, as we had suggested, we'll come back. Councillor Doherty, were you looking to actually amend the wording or just have something acknowledged to the question you had raised with regards to the SkyDev property?
Whatever the procedure would be with regard to the minutes, whether it should be added or whether it should be just verbally acknowledged.
Okay. So at this point, it's been verbally acknowledged. Clerk Almost, is that to your satisfaction, or would you?
Thank you, Your Worship. It should be an amendment. So the amendment would basically read that the minutes be modified to include that Director Slama was requested to provide an update regarding the access signalization.
Okay.
But it was design. It was design at the intersection.
Okay. And just for the record, I'll go with the mover is Councillor Jeffrey, and the seconder is Councillor Hamlin from DNO, if you're okay with that. And then I'll ask you to add your friendly amendment. So, which I think if we just use the wording of the clerk would be amenable.
Yes, thank you. To amend the minutes, to add that there was a request of engineering to consider a design change to the intersection between the access to the SkyDevGo property and the Lighthouse Point property.
Okay. And if I could get a seconder for the amendment, please. Councillor Jeffrey. Okay. Any questions on the amendment? Seeing none, I'll call the question on the amendment. It's carried unanimously, and I'll go back to the original mover and seconder, Councillor Jeffrey, Councillor Hamlin. Any questions on the motion with regards to DNO? Okay. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, and that's unanimous. Thank you. That takes us to motions. Read it. Whereas subsection 259 1E, the Municipal Act 2001 provides that the office of a member of council of a municipality comes vacant if a member is appointed or elected to fill any vacancy in any other office on the same council. And whereas section 262(1) of the Act provides that if the office of council becomes vacant, the council shall declare the office to be vacant. And whereas the acting deputy mayor was appointed deputy mayor effective September 20th, 2022, therefore be it resolved that in accordance with section 262 of the Municipal Act 2001, Council of the Town of Collingwood does hereby declare the office of councillor to be vacant, and that in accordance with section 263(5)(3), period, if any vacancy occurs within 90 days before voting day of a regular election, the municipality is not required to fill the vacancy. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? I've got Councillor Berman, Councillor Jeffrey. Any questions of the clerk specific to this matter? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the vote. Those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. That takes us to bylaws, and we have one. Item 12.1, the bylaw number 2022-082, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2020-059, delegation of powers be enacted and passed this 26th day of September 2022. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Berman and Councillor Jeffrey, thank you. Are there any questions of our clerk or CAO? Councillor Carrier.
Thank you. Through you to either the CAO clerk or the director of planning or acting director of planning. So this is a bylaw delegating or amending the delegation of authority, and the original bylaw was 2020-059. So when I was on council, I know you guys hate this story, a long time ago, members of council actually sat on the site development committee, and we got rid of that when council that I led as mayor. We decided that that was not really a political function to sit on site development committee. Is there still a role for council? Is it done through development operations to review and see a site plan agreement, or is this strictly now a staff function?
CAO Skinner.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's actually a quite interesting development that happened as a part of the Bill 109, More Homes for Everyone Act in 2022. I think probably just before, I can't remember the timing, but maybe just before you sat on council. But they actually require that a council passes a bylaw to establish a site plan control area and to appoint an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality as the authorized person. So up until quite recently, council actually made direct decisions on all the site plans, but now it's a requirement to delegate to someone else.
Councillor Carrier.
No, that's a no. So the council has no role then in site development applications anymore through the planning process?
That's my understanding. Go ahead.
In part, however, if appropriate or applicable, you would still have a role in the allocation of servicing to the development itself. So water and wastewater servicing. and anything that came before a site plan, of course, as far as Planning Act or other council approvals.
Resting change over 20 years. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for clarification? Yes?
Thank you. So this is an amendment simply to identify that a delegate can be appointed by the department head for each of these decisions. Is that that's correct?
Go ahead.
Through the chair to Councillor Doherty. Yes, in fact, we did have a report, and unfortunately, we needed this housekeeping item. There was a report a while ago, and it basically said that we would like to have it delegated to the director or his or her designate. And we failed to update both bylaws. So there's a delegation of authority bylaw and a site plan bylaw. So this is to catch up with the one that we didn't quite get perfect, which was to say to the director and or his or her delegate. And it became clear during the director's recent medical leave that having someone else who in an emergency or a short-term situation could sign matters was a good thing. And it is consistent with the approval provided previously by council.
So if I have a follow-up question, please. So I just want to understand if we can anticipate that that delegate would always be the same person, or would each matter potentially have a different delegate of authority if the department head is not able to or cannot provide the approval?
Through the chair, I would think that it's a singular delegate and that it would be a formal process to go through that delegation. It would be someone such as in her home position, Manager Ayers, who was qualified and skilled to be making those types of approvals because they are extremely important to the municipality.
Thank you. That was exactly the example that I was going to use. Okay, thank you. That clarifies for me.
Seeing no other questions then, I do have a mover and seconder, and Councillor Berman, Councillor Jeffrey, call the question. All those in the affirmative. And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. That takes us to item 13, which is notice of motion. Councillor Jeffrey, if you'd like to table your notice.
Yep, just to give notice, asking that the CAO update council in camera.
Sorry, Your Worship. I'm just going to step away from the table for this discussion. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Appreciate it.
Mayor Hall, and if I could just be clear, I'm just reading in the notice. We're not going, It's not actionable this evening, right? It goes to the next meeting.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So that the CAO update council in camera if necessary and the public at minimum on a monthly basis regarding progress on the popular regional health wellness village MZO.
Okay, thank you. So that'll come forward for discussion and consideration at our next meeting of council, which I think is the 19th of... Yes, sir.
I just had a quick question through you related to this. If it was time sensitive, should we consider waiving notice?
I'll go back to the mover. Were you thinking that this was a time sensitive matter?
We did receive and are receiving an update this evening, and 1 month would take us for October 17th. Have a meeting in between.
It would be October 17 when it comes back.
I think that's sufficient. I think that the CAO or the mayor or deputy mayor would certainly update us if they needed to.
I don't have anything else, but does anyone else have a notice of motion for this evening? Seeing none then, county report. I don't have anything to add. Deputy Mayor McLeod, do you have anything? We meet tomorrow. If there's anything specific tonight that you wanted to bring forward, please do.
No, I've brought in an update at the previous meeting, and I look forward to tomorrow's.
Are there any questions from around the table? Takes us to item 15, our consent agenda. And the council herein received the general consent agenda, and further, that the information and opinions provided in the general consent agenda items are not that of the authors and are not verified or approved as being correct. And we have two items tonight. The first one is 15.1, National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, the clock tower being illuminated in orange from the 29th of September through to the 3rd of October, and that the flag raising would be at 4 p.m. on the 29th, which is the Thursday, day prior. 15.2 is a proclamation for Probus Month, October 2022. And again, the clock tower to be illuminated purple from October 11 to 17, 2022. Flag raising to be held October the 11th, 2022 at 10 a.m. For some reason, I have 1:30 in my calendar, but we'll figure it out. I can get, please, a mover and seconder to receive these two items. I've got Councillor Jeffrey, Councillor Berman. All those in favor of receiving, that's unanimous. Does anybody wish to pull an item? Okay. That takes us then to item 16 on our agenda, and we have 16.1, 16.2, 16.11. Under older deferred business is the C 2022-20, the CJI follow-up bylaw for position of mayor and CEO. And this is an item that was referred from the 18th of August 2022 council meeting. And it reads as follows, that staff report C 2022-20 CJI follow-up bylaw for position of mayor and CEO be received, and the council enact and pass a bylaw to amend the procedural bylaw specific to the role of mayor as provided in Appendix A to this report, and further, council enact and pass a bylaw for the purpose of establishing the duties, roles, and responsibilities of the chief administrative officer as provided in Appendix B to this report. That bylaw number 2022-072 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2021-090, a bylaw to govern the proceedings of council, standing committee, and other committees and boards of council be enacted and passed this 20th day of September 2022, and the bylaw number 2022-073 being a bylaw to establish the duties, roles, and responsibilities of the CAO or Chief Administration Officer for the Corporation of the Town of Collingwood be enacted and passed this 20th day of September 2022. And of course, in reading that, we'll amend the 20th to tonight being the 26th. So, okay. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? I've got Councillor Carrier and I've got Councillor Doherty. Thank you. Are there any questions specific to this matter? Yes, please. Councillor Doherty.
Thank you. In the staff report, there's a reference to an item, number 82, Chief Administrative Officer's term being 6-year non-renewable, and the discussion from our staff is that there is no precedent for such a renewable term or non-renewable term for CAO. And my suggestion here, I think that really that it's really a counterproductive item within this report and the judicial inquiry report. And my suggestion would be that we would either delete this item altogether or make a 6-year renewable term. I don't know whether we have the ability to delete an item that came out of the judicial inquiry.
Thank you, Councillor Doherty. I am just pulling that up, and at the same time, I'm going to refer the question to our staff, to our perhaps clerk first.
Certainly. Thank you, Your Worship. That was also something that has been brought before this council as well, indicating that based on best practice, that it's not recommended and we weren't going to advance it, but we thought we'd be remiss to not at least identify that was one of the items that were noted in the CJI. So that has not been included in the duties and responsibilities bylaw.
Okay. So I do see the text box that's been included with the comment.
Yes. Yeah.
To summarize that. Okay. Okay. Councillor Jeffrey, you had a question?
Thank you, Mayor Hall. So through to the clerk, then, were there other items from the CJI that were eliminated and not referred to for us to have the understanding that they were recommended but not included in this?
Clerk Almas?
Certainly, I don't believe that there was any further ones. They would have been in a previous CJI report with the numbered with the items with if they had been completed or not completed. I think one of them that was discussed, that was part of the report regarding the code of conduct, was the financial notice information. I think that was the only other one offhand in which council looked at providing a modified provision within the code of conduct. So it was addressed by this council. I don't recollect if there was any further ones beside the items that were recommended for the province to make decisions on.
Councillor Jeffrey, you have a follow-up?
Additional question.
Mhm.
Thank you,
Yep.
Mayor Hall, through you. So in terms of the wording, when it said a 6-year non-renewable, it wouldn't mean that not reemployable, it's just that you would renegotiate? Is that a possibility through that wording, or is that like a...
Clerk Almas?
Certainly, I may actually defer this one to actually our CAO. I know that she's had further conversations with Justice Morocco and what the intent behind that recommendation was. So maybe she would be able to elaborate a little bit further.
CEO Skinner?
Through the chair, thank you. I did have the chance to talk directly with the justice when he was doing an interview for the Municipal Administrators Association, and I did ask about this one, what the pros and cons may be. He had interpreted it, as I understood him, to be not less than and also not more than 6 years. Thus, one would be able to speak truth to council, and I don't know what the benefits are of not having a CAO for longer than 6 years. I do know that in a number of reports that have been provided to council over the last 2 years, that was one that was identified as potentially one that wouldn't be implemented, only because you already have a CAO. And we hadn't looked at a termination date so far, but so that's what the background that I know from the conversation with the justice. Thank you.
Follow-up?
Thank you. Yes. So it still didn't really answer my question, and I think it's probably one I'll have to let them take away and maybe better define for me what non-renewable would mean in terms of still being able to rehire the current CAO with just renegotiating.
Okay. So were you simply making comment for takeaway, or?
Well, if they could bring an answer back. I don't think, if I need a motion to ask for that, then I will do that.
Well, before I call the vote on what's been already tabled, are you looking to?
No, I just want information. That's okay.
Okay.
It's not here. We could add it later at another time, right?
Okay, fair enough. And did you have another comment? Go ahead, CEO Skinner.
Thank you, Your Worship. More than willing to do any follow-up that council would like. That said, the report is quite terse on this point. The entirety of that recommendation is what's in front of you in your package, and there's no definition for what that might mean. So we can surmise, but I don't know if we could bring back something that was more clear. Just to be clear, I don't think it's something that came from the inquiry, and now that the inquiry's been disbanded, it's difficult to get more information.
I'll sit on it. Thank you.
All right. Any further questions? Yep, Councillor Doherty.
Yes, thank you. So I had previously asked about the same item, and I thought I understood from the clerk that this is not going to be included in our CAO bylaw. Is that what I heard?
That is correct.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor McLeod.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions about the bylaw regarding the mayor. I know that we had a conversation about this in camera, but this wasn't appropriate in camera, so I felt like I would bring it out into public. We have chosen, or this report recommends changing subsection 3.1 of our procedural bylaw with regard to the mayor and their actions. And one of the things that is suggested is that several things get added, including subsection M, and also that we remove subsection C. And I'm mostly concerned about subsection C because what that takes out is subsection C regarding the CAO, I apologize, is saying subsection C, something about assisting council members, which is currently in our procedural bylaw. And I'm just wondering what the reasoning is that that subsection would be taken out of the CAO's job description of assisting council members. And if so, if we do go ahead with that, what does that mean for who assists council members, and what was the genesis of that? Through the mayor.
Sorry, if I may ask, Your Worship, do you have a page number that you're looking at that I can reference?
Sure. It's in the staff report, page 10 of 19. So it's section 3.6 of the bylaw, and it's to be amended by removing subsections A through C, apparently which will help avoid conflicting languages of the duties of the CAO in the CAO establishing bylaw, and amending subsection D to read. But it's further to item number C, which is after, of course, item number A and B in the procedural byline. So it specifically references item C is item C in that list is assisting council members currently, and it is recommended that it come out. And I'm curious to know the genesis of taking that out, and if we are to take that out, who will be doing that role from a staff member point of view, assisting councillors?
Clerk Olmus, if you need a moment, I'm assuming none of these questions were provided in advance, so take your time.
No, I do apologize for that. We did do this in some discussion of this in camera, and I did make reference to bringing some of my questions into open session, and then I failed to provide them to you, and I do apologize for that in advance. And it may well be that this is covered within the establishing bylaw, and that may be the answer that I'm looking for. But I'd like confirmation that that's what the answer is. So currently, under duties of the Chief Administrative Officer, under the procedural bylaw, item 3.6, subsection C, is to assist the council to discharge its responsibilities and in a nonpartisan manner aid council members to carry out their duties. And this new bylaw takes out A, B, and C. From the procedural bylaw. But does it replace that action in the establishing bylaw for the CAO? I believe that it does, but I would just like to hear for sure that it does.
Certainly. In looking at the provision, sorry, I thought it was related to the mayor. It's under, yes, 3.6, the duties of the Chief Administrative Officer. And I believe it was captured in the amendments to the duties and roles and responsibilities of the CAO in the attached bylaw. Page 13, number 8.
Perfect. Thank you so much. It is indeed. Thank you. I do appreciate that.
And the one other question that I have, and I do apologize again that I didn't give you a heads up on this, has to do actually with the changes to the bylaw with regard to the mayor. And so subsection 3.1 of the procedural bylaw is being amended in this motion, and it talks about how in point 2 of the bylaw, that bylaw number 2021-90 be amended by adding the following items to subsection 3.1, and one of them is M, that the mayor should intervene when they become aware of uncivil conduct at council meetings, committee meetings, and other work-related circumstances. And then my question about this, I'm all for it, but my question is what is one to do in those situations? Is there discussion that needs to be had? What tools will the mayor be given in those situations? Through the mayor.
Go ahead.
Certainly, thank you. I believe through our council orientation and ongoing training, we're looking at a robust training, number one, for chairs. The mayor, the deputy mayor will as well. And I think that will be addressed in there as part of, the role that we want our mayor and chairs of our standing committees, even our boards and advisory committees, for their leadership and helping to ensure that collaborative approach and intervening when it's appropriate. So at this point, that training program has not rolled out, but we will ensure that it is.
Okay, super. Thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, so I still have Councillor Carrier and Councillor Doherty as our mover and seconder. Yep. Okay, so I'll call the question. All those in the affirmative, please. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Takes us then to 16.2, other business. 16.2.1 is an MZO update. And at the outset of the meeting, when we returned, thank you, Councillor Carrier. When we returned from our in-camera session, we had indicated that as opposed to a rise and report at that time, we would provide an update at this time at the meeting or within the meeting. And if it's okay, CAO Skinner, I'll provide a brief synopsis and then we can go from there. So to the public, as council and staff are already apprised, on August the 18th of 2022, this council provided direction in the form of a motion that was passed to expedite a process with regards to the property at the corner of Poplar and Raglan on the southeast border of those two streets within the town of Collingwood. And the purpose was to entertain, in principle, an MZO as it relates to a vision that has been brought forward by the property owner, Depoche, Mr. Depoche, but it's Depoche Management, and representation made through Live, Work, Learn, Play. Through the direction that was approved on the 18th of August, staff have had introductory meetings with the ministry at the provincial level to answer. I'm going to use housekeeping questions. I don't mean housekeeping as in general, but just some broad, strokes in terms of questions that needed to be asked and answered from the outset so that we could continue to move forward. Communication was sent on behalf of the corporation to the minister's office, and we did receive receipt of correspondence, and that Minister Clark, because of his robust schedule, as he continues in the portfolio as the Minister for Municipal Affairs, had indicated that the best practice or best wish at this time would be that we would reach out to his Deputy Chief of Staff and to his head of policy. So that has been done on behalf of the corporation. In the interim, there have been a number of meetings, and there has been communication going back and forth between myself and now Deputy Mayor, as well as your senior staff and the proponents and the proponents' representation. to continue the dialogue in an effort to come to a consensus as to how best we will move the direction forward and capture the vision that was presented to the public by the proponent, and ensure that the municipality at the same time is best protected, so that when we do in fact meet with ministry staff, we're all singing from the same playbook, if I may use that term or reference. As I noted, we've had a couple of those meetings, and in fact, our latest was in fact first thing this morning, at which we had put forward some thoughts through our planning consultant, Mr. Palmer, who is on retainer, and those will be taken away for consideration. We have another meeting that has been established for a week today, and we're hopeful that by the week of the 17th of October, that at some point within that week, we would in fact actually be, as a collective, in front of the ministry in Toronto. So that's sort of from a high-level perspective where we are as of now, since the 18th of October. And I'll look first to our CAO and see if she'd like to add any comment of clarification. And of course, we'll welcome questions.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would just add that it's expected that the final details would come back to Council for their endorsement prior to the final Collingwood stamp of approval. But other than that, thank you.
Okay. And for those who are following, that may come back in the form of a special meeting of Council, simply because the dates that we're hoping to be down in Toronto would be the week that we actually would have a meeting of Council, which is already established, so thus the need. Are there any questions from around the table? Okay. So that is the update. And then further to the notice that was provided tonight and may come back on the 19th, depending on that outcome, I'm sure that there will be continued updates provided either by the chair, whoever that may be here, and or the CAO as it relates to this portfolio. So with that, if we could have Councillor Carrier return. And before I move on to item 17, is there any other business from around the table be put forward tonight? Yes, sir, Councillor Carrier.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you and to Council and to staff, I was at the Ontario East Municipal Conference in Cornwall, and on private business, but certainly a number of elected officials recognize that I have an elected past. Some of them are unaware that I'm currently on council. I just wanted to point out to you that with the efforts that this council and staff have put into the Collingwood judicial inquiry, that there are numerous politicians, senior staff, and people who are there to do presentations that continue to ask me at every conference about the judicial inquiry and the efforts that Collingwood has put into ensuring a clean governmental process moving forward. So your colleagues in Eastern Ontario and professionals, I'm not kidding, they continue to ask me every conference I go to, and it doesn't seem to matter which province. But I was in Cornwall last week, and I just thought I'd bring that to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carrier. Is there anyone else that would offer any other business tonight? Okay. With that, we'll move to our confirmatory bylaw, and that is the bylaw number 2022-084, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of Council held September 26, 2022, be enacted and passed this 26th day of September 2022. Mover and seconder, please. I've got Councillor Berman, I've got Councillor Doherty, and all those in favor? That would be unanimous, thank you. And Councillor Jeffrey with our adjournment.
I move adjournment.
All those in favor? Thank you very much. Good evening, folks.